Welcome back to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions, your home for all things psycho. And I apologize to my regular watchers, listeners, because I'm going a little bit mainstream today. Um, why? I don't know. I mean, I grew up with X-Men. X-Men was my first comic that I really actually, not the first comic I ever picked up, but the first one I actually started collecting. I was an X-Men fanatic back in the late 80s, early 90s. And, by the time the cartoon even originally came out, it was like X-Men was already kind of old hat. It was like I was very judgmental of the cartoon. I loved it, but I was looking forward to it after being a fan for a long time. And the most recent iteration of the cartoon that just came out, X-Men 97, is kind of a hot topic right now. I just finished it not too long ago and I enjoyed it. I don't really have a ton of complaints. I really felt like the Madeline Pryor Inferno stuff was rushed through a little much. I would have way rather have seen like a larger Inferno style storyline. So that was the only part that I was like, yeah, but the rest of it I thoroughly enjoyed. Um, all the characters, the voices are done well, the direction, the writing, all really cool stuff. So I was digging through some dollar bins and I found a whole collection of X-Men 2099, like first like six or seven of them in a dollar bin, and I was like, well, why the heck not? Because it's something that I never really tackled when I was younger for some reason. I don't know why. Um, I wouldn't have. I didn't really pick up all the 29. I thought it was interesting. I was already collecting so much, and I only had a limited amount of money to collect. So, uh, yeah, I had to make sacrifices. But man, that really seemed intriguing to me. This is about as 90s as you can get, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, look at this. This is, I mean, every book in the on the racks in 1993 looked like this. I can't imagine how this would have stuck out at all. So the 2099 run was something that Marvel devised that originally was kind of meant to take place, I think, in 2093. It was supposed to be like, it was called Marvel 2093, and it was going to be like 100 years from when the titles were launched, which was 1993. But they finally made it 2099, and the initial titles were Spider Man, Punisher, and Doom, all 2099. Spider Man 2099 rocked it. That title did really well and ended up having like a cult following, I think, that lasted for a while. The rest of the 2099 titles didn't really last that long, from my understanding. They eventually ended up with Fantastic Four, Ghost Rider, Hulk, Ravage 2099, which was actually an original character rather than just a take of a previous character, and then X-Men. This was written by John Francis Moore, who's kind of a long-standing staple of a writer. He also did Doom 2099, and Ron Lim, artist Ron Lim, of Silver Surfer fame. He actually got his start in a lot of power comics, I think, with Malibu and also Silver Wolf. But he really established himself as through Silver Surfer and kind of like Marvel Cosmics sort of stuff. But I did not realize that he actually did X-Men 2099. So that was kind of cool. Every 2099 book had this border. If you've watched my Ultraverse videos, you know that I'm actually a fan. Oh, and Silver Wolf videos too. I like standardized borders on the comics that help differentiate it from other books. I don't know why. It's just a cool branding thing that I really like. And every 2099 cover, it was a foil border. At least for the first ones, it was always for the number ones. They didn't continue it past that. This one's a little hard to see because it's like a darker blue, but it's a little fun. Just your kind of your standard team shot by Ron Lim. So let's kind of take a gander and a look. Oh, look at that. That's fun to see a Nightmare Before Christmas OG ad. I wonder if Tim Burton actually drew that. So we get this kind of abandoned looking place, complex out in the Nevada desert. It's called Nueva Sol, Arcology. And it is obviously the kind of like the hideout. And this is actually a run of the mill X-Men style introduction to an X-Men story or book. You've got like a new character that you're bringing in, and they're coming to like the X Mansion, as it were. The old Jean Grey is, from the very first issue, and then Kitty Pryde later, and now we get this guy who's coming, and obviously it's a future where corporations have completely taken over. There really isn't. It's kind of like a Shadowrun scenario where everything's more corporate run than government run. And so he was given this card by one of the individuals in the X group, and the bouncer of the place lets him in reluctantly. And he goes, and there's just this big, like Matrix style, like rave orgy thing. I don't know, but everybody's just having a party. So, yep, it's very, 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 very 90s. He bumps into one of the individuals, and the first one is Serpentina, who is kind of like, she can stretch and stuff, so she's kind of like a Mr. Fantastic sort of thing. And just kind of letting him know that, hey, that this is for all the freaks and geeks. It's not just mutants. This is a place for all the outcasts that don't want to just be a corporate barcode, So they're kind of like setting the stage of this like future where people are actually just products than anything else. So this is a refuge for that. As I was reading it, I didn't really notice much, but as I'm looking at it on the screen, the coloring ain't half bad. Do the color separations. Tom Smith. I don't mind the choices. Pretty well done, especially for 93. This might have been, I think this might have been traditional coloring process. I don't think that this was computer coloring. So Serpentina introduced him to one of the other guys. It just calls him Eddie. So I don't know what his like code name is, but apparently he can turn his skin into any kind of metal that he wants, and he's using the properties of that to and with choreographed movements, there's this like percussion vibration that gets created with these mechanisms. Again, this is like the future, and that's what everybody's dancing to. So this is like, again, this is a very 90s interpretation of what future clothing would look like. A lot of fun. And then they're like, wait till you meet Zion. So I think it's Xi apostrophe AN, Zion. I'm gonna say Zion. And so there's conversation that's happening with the bouncer, then one of the other characters. Her name's Shakti, and she's the one that found the guy and invited him to the group. He's being kind of curmudgeon-y and really difficult about things, and she ends up sending like some kind of shock through him, It's like, don't push me, so there's some tension here. And then we get somewhere in like Las Vegas. There's a hotel casino that's owned by this guy named Scythe, who's um, pretty much like the ruler. It's almost like a city state, like chic sort of style of government or scenario happening here. And he apparently kidnaps mutants and sells them on the black market, or just outright kills them for fun and sport, for like all these games and stuff that he hosts. And he's just in some area inside of his skyscraper that's like got pasture enough room for a horse to run around. And Zion, who that lady was talking about before, he's like kind of like the leader, comes in and basically threatens him, tells him to back off. And if not, he's going, he threatens him. And his mutant power is that he kind of like anything he touches like decays, and like falls apart. So he basically just gives him a warning and says it'll be a declaration of war if you don't back off. And then we get one of the scenes of one of these auctions, and there's this mutant named Bloodwing who is being auctioned off. And of course, he's bound in chains. He's got some kind of neural link that incapacitates him. It's all like kind of like your standard mutant fare. And these individuals, specifically these two, are brother and sister, and they are the children of Scythe. And they're just like total punks. He uses some sort of drug thing that when he taps into it, it's something like Venom from like the DC universe, from the Batman story. It just kind of amps up his adrenaline and gives him strength. And of course, she's some kind of like sassy seductress. Really like the coloring job here. And so they're getting ready to basically kill him, and you just kind of get a feel of these two characters. And they put him into a cell, and then the guards end up getting crystallized, but the crystal is porous. So this is Crystalline, and she's coming to help save, and this is Mean Streak. Again, a very, very common X-Men motif. There's a mutant who's captured, and we get an introduction of a couple of the characters coming in to rescue said mutant. So it's very standard X-Men sort of introduction here. So he obviously moves fast. He's just kind of like Quicksilver, but his name's Mean Streak, and he's also kind of mean. He's like not very nice. He's like Raphael. So haha, Mean Streak. And she's crystalline, and apparently she creates porous crystal that people can breathe through. Got that. I remember the Pizza Hut X-Men thing. And then in the middle of this, we get an introduction to the world of 2099 by promoting previews of all the books. And we've already got, remember, Spider-Man, Doom, and Punisher are already well on their way. And then X-Men and Ravage and Hulk 2099 were all new ones. I think Ghost Rider and Fantastic Four came way later. So here we get a 2-page introduction to Spider-Man. Pretty cool. And we've got the borders that would go with that particular comic. Pretty fun. I can't remember. Peter David wrote it, but I cannot remember who did the art. But pretty good. Like it. Fluid. Action. I don't really understand what's happening because it's literally right in the middle of the comic. Ravage had very much just kind of like that artwork that was just very in that extreme style artwork that was very indicative of the early to mid 90s. He turned into some kind of like wolfish kind of character, I guess. I don't really know anything about him. Maybe I'll pick it up someday. Doom, and this looks like it's actually lifted straight from the splash page and introduction to Doom. And I think that Doom, it sounds like he's completely mechanized at this point. Like he's almost like the intelligence of Doom lived on in robot form. So, another one I wouldn't mind picking up. Really love this. And then X-Men 2099, which I don't know why we're getting a preview of X-Men 2099 in the comic itself. But cool, like poster-esque. I don't know why they didn't. This is like literally right in the middle of the comic too. So I don't know why they didn't actually just make this a poster. Um, but the preview for X-Men 2099 is actually from issue 2. And I know that, remember, because I picked them up and I started reading. Punisher 2099. I don't know anything about Punisher 2099 and Hulk 2099. I liked Hulk. A few of my friends I grew up with were major Hulk fans, and they didn't really seem that interested in this. I mean, he looks very dragon-esque or something. I don't know. It's like it kind of lost the look of Hulk a little bit. I don't know. I mean, it's cool looking though. All right, moving on to the actual story. So they rescue Bloodwing, and he's actually kind of pretty ungrateful, and that's his mutant power. He kind of turns into this creature, winged gargoyle-looking creature, and it turns out he's actually like a mutoid. A mutroid is something that the guards call them, which isn't like a fully fledged mutant. He's there. It's some kind of other like subgenre of mutant. They haven't really got into it yet, but they're like, come, Zion sent us. He, come be with us, and he's just like, I don't owe you anything. I don't have to go with you, and then takes off. And then back to the kids of Scythe. They go to visit Daddy, and Daddy is a decaying corpse on top of the horse. So somebody killed Scythe, and the kids freak out, and they're like, let's send all of the troops to kill Zion and his entourage of people. So Zion and Shakti having some kind of conversation here about the new guy that came in, whose name is Timothy. And Shakti's like, I don't know why, you had me bring this new guy in. He's like, I think he'll contribute to our group in soul as well as body. And it's funny. He's being kind of obtuse, and she's like, don't be so elliptical. So I guess that's the new word for obtuse. But she knows that he went to go see Singe, and she's trying to find out, like, what was that conversation like, what happened, and he's like, we'll talk about it later. So he gets up in front of the crowd. Everybody's watching. We got a little homage to Cyclops here. And so basically he's the new Professor X, and he's kind of talking about like how like we can come together, and we have a greater purpose rather than all the mega corporations combined. And he actually refers to Professor X. So, but neither man nor machine could eliminate Homo Superior nor deny us our humanity. From Xavier, we learned unity. From Magneto, the rules of combat. Del Ruiz taught us sacrifice, so these are like the carriers of the X-Men legacy since then. And Zhao, enlightenment. From their legacy, we know no matter the curse or blessing of our genetic makeup, we must be willing to fight for our tomorrow. So, kind of cool, giving us like what's been happening the past 100 years or so, of how the X-Men survived and who's led them. And the new guy actually notices that there's a sniper that is getting ready to shoot Zion, and his mutant power gets set off, and it's very basic. Even though it looks kind of cool, and he eventually apparently has a kind of an interesting looking makeup job. It's a little bit different than the rest of the others. That's supposed to be him. But he just absorbs energy around him and then shoots it out. Which is just, that seemed in the 90s to kind of just be the standard. mutant power to give people. But shoots the guy. He still gets a shot in and hits Cyan, but he's not fully killed. Now this I didn't understand. I thought that was the blood exploding. Usually Ron Lim is really clear with his storytelling. Little cartoonish at times, which I don't mind. His faces, just to talk a little about his art right now, oftentimes like the shape of their mouths and everything are so similar, that if the characters don't have very distinct looks, I could see it could be kind of hard to. But he's done a pretty good job here. But I thought that was the blood splattering, and then I was like, wait, is that more blood splatters? Because all of that is not on the wall behind him there, and then there's even more. And I'm like, did he get shot through? Like, but it was only like one shot, so I don't know. Maybe it was just some kind of weird technique he was playing with. But Sice people come, Sice enforcers, and surround everyone and start shooting and taking everybody out. They grab Scythe, they grab the new guy, and they start taking off. We get Eddie, I don't know his name, looking all Colossus-like here with long hair. They say something about Cerebra activating the hydraulics, so I guess there's a version of Cerebra in the future that they're using as kind of like an AI that runs the place, Nuevo Sol. But there's underground tunnels, and they get Scythe in there and into a van, very basic looking van for $29.99, and take off down the tunnels. And Zion is like, I knew you'd join my X-Men. And he's like, X-Men? To be continued. So, anyway, I thought that was kind of fun. These ads are always crazy. This Stridex thing. I had to use Stridex. I didn't have a ton of acne as a teenager, but I had a little bit. I had to use it a little bit. So, yeah, that's it. X-Men 2099 #1. It was fun. It was a fun read. It's very, I just went into it going, this is going to be about as 90s, and it is really fully as 90s as you can get. And I kind of started glancing through the other issues, and it is just, you got to be ready for that style of things. Even more so than the other X books, because at least those characters have this like legacy. These are all new characters, and they all just are that like, all right, let's make up a character. It's 1993, and they all have like very much kind of the same look and feel as anything else that was out at the time. But that's fine. I really enjoyed it. Bloodwing looks like he's kind of like the Wolverine of the group. You got like your staples. You got the Wolverine, the Cyclops, the Quicksilver, the Storm, the Colossus, the Professor X. That's Zion, the Psylocke, and the Jubilee. So you've got all your like basic stand-ins of the X-Men. Tons of fun. I might do videos on the next ones. I might not. I'm not sure. We'll see. I'm just enjoying reading them for now, and I hope you enjoyed this. Go watch X-Men 97 if you haven't seen it yet. Let me know what you think. Alright, everybody, have fun, take care, go X-Men. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I've got a Patreon. I've got books and comics that you can purchase. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Keep it psycho.